Just bear with me. I'm trying to start the recording.
Yep, whenever you're ready.
Okay, it's live. Go for it.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's now 6:02. I hereby call the meeting of the Town of Yarmouth Accessibility Committee to order. I believe Sherry has got attendance. Just give me 30 seconds here. Tracy's just coming in. I have Tracy. I would like to acknowledge that we are on unceded lands of the Mi'kmaq. I would also like to acknowledge that today is International Women's Day, and to thank everybody, or thank all the women that take part in this committee, and as well as your community. Thank you for everything that you do. Absence and regrets. Have you got that, Sherry? Okay. Declaration of conflict of interest. Once again, if anyone has a conflict of interest with any of the topics that we're going to be discussing tonight, please let myself know at that time, and we'll consider your options at that time. Approval of the agenda. If everyone take a moment and look over the agenda, do you agree with everything that's on it, or would you like to add something to it? Okay. I'm hereby going to make a motion that we accept the agenda as stated. Can I have someone approve that? I have Derek as one, and I need a second. I have Tracy as two. Moving on. The approval of the minutes of last week's meeting, February the 8th. Did everybody get a chance to read them? I know you were absent, Tracy. Did you get a copy of them? Okay, perfect. I hereby make a request that we approve February the 8th, 2002 minutes. Do I have somebody approve that? I know I'm rushing through things, okay? I have Derek and Gail at the same time, so I'll take that as a first and a second if you gentlemen don't disagree. Public input. I'm going to mention that when we get to the chair's meeting. Oh, I see the chair got bumped. Okay, well, no, wait a minute, it's under new business. I'm sorry. I'm gonna get my glasses checked this week. I'm gonna jump right into 9A because as far as public input goes, I had somebody come to me very last minute about a business that was not accessible. Now, I know it's not in our range of things to touch businesses, and I don't really know the details. I'm going to be speaking with them this week. And I say last minute, I'm saying it was literally 3 days ago. So I will speak with them, and I won't name the name of the business or the people at this time, simply because I don't know the details, but they did reach out, and I'm thankful for that. I'm also going to, when we go on the report of the chair, I'll let you also know that we met with the community of the whole. We presented our plan. Good day, Peter. I just see that you came in. Thank you. The community of the whole loved our plan. We got a lot of votes of encouragement. We got a lot of praise. The next step they approved it 100%. The next step for our plan will be to take it to council. And I'm sure Natalie will know the date of that. I don't know the date of that right offhand.
Mr. Chair, it's this Thursday that council.
This Thursday?
It's this Thursday, and council has the document.
Okay.
I would just suggest there's one change that the CAO identified, is that we should add a definition for barrier-free. So I'll look at that in the morning and provide a definition for barrier free and send it to everybody here. And then if that's good, then it'll be added to the document and updated for council.
Perfect. We also met with the Provincial Accessibility Group this past month. This was kind of a first for me, a first for the group, actually. It was interesting to see where different accessibility groups, with regards to different municipalities and towns and whatnot, are at. Just safely to say that we are where we should be and doing what we should be doing. Some are ahead of us, some are behind us. The Provincial Accessibility Group, I feel, will be a great group for us to meet and talk about different concerns, different struggles. I look forward to see where that goes. That's all I have for the chair's report. So I'm going to move it over to work plan deliveries by Natalie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't provide my usual update in presentation format. There's only really one line item that we need to complete, which is approval of the accessibility plan by council, which is scheduled for this Thursday, and to submit the plan for review to the Accessibility Directorate, of which we have a target date of next Tuesday, May the 15th, barring any issues that might come forth from council. So that's it. That would be the end of the first year's work plan deliverables for this committee, and we'll have to establish a new one. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Natalie. Communications update. You still with us, Mike?
I'm here.
Okay.
So just briefly to add on what Natalie just said, with regard to the release of the plan next week, assuming that everything goes well with council on Thursday, I've been working on a press release to go with the actual release of the plan on Tuesday morning. So what I'll do is upload the plan and the consultation report, and I believe the audit reports to the Get Involved site on our website. And I have a press release about 90% ready to go now. I'll have it ready probably tomorrow morning. I'll send it to you, Stephen, for a look, because I'll need your input on a quote and that sort of thing, and to Natalie as well, and maybe a few of the other team members for a look. So we'll have that ready to go. And that will go out on Tuesday. I spoke with Tina at the Vanguard. She's definitely interested in doing something with that. So there could be some follow-up with you, Stephen, with Natalie, or with Mayor Mood, obviously, to talk about as a follow-up to the plan actually being released. We'll do some social media around it, obviously next week and weeks beyond, to draw attention to it, to let people know it's been done and released. Thank people for their input, whether it's through the survey or the virtual conference that we had. I'm planning a newspaper spot in terms of an actual ad on the 23rd to advise people, same thing, about the plan's been released and where they can access it going forward. And there will also be something in the Southwest Wire paper. I'm not sure if it'll be something that I do in my own piece that I'm working on, or it'll be one of the writers, but there will be something in the coming weeks, next 2 to 3 weeks, about the plan being completed and released as well. So that's it for the time being.
Okay, I will just slightly interrupt here. If anybody wants to see the PowerPoint communications that we gave the community of the whole, by all means, reach out to Natalie, Sherry, or I, and we'll send them to you. They're really just a brief summary of what the plan says. But if anybody wants to see that wasn't there, I can send them to you. Moving on to audits that were done. Once again, when we look at the audits, I'd like to thank all those that did it. I believe the ones that we're looking at here were done by Sherry and Tracy. Thank you for your hard work on these. And Sherry's going to lead the discussion on these audits.
Sherry, do you want me to unshare and then you share it on your end?
Or you can from there if that's
Okay, and just in case we get any interruption, you've got the backup. So let me open the first one for you.
Thank you, Natalie.
You're welcome.
So I did not know when I filled these out in freezing cold, windy weather that anybody was going to see my messy handwriting except for Francois. So, so please pardon, it might be a little difficult to read in some places. So I just went at my lunch times when I happened to be in town and went to visit the different sites. So this first one is the Broadbrook Wetland Trail. And actually, of all the sites, this was the one I felt was the most accessible. You can kind of go through the whole trail easily, like all areas of it are accessible. The path is wide, it meets the parameters. And kind of like if you'll notice, there's kind of little descriptors in the pages of the audit itself. So yeah, you can just kind of scroll through there, Natalie. And I actually wasn't confident enough because I didn't have the whole document with me about the final score at the end that I left that to talk to Francois about. So that's not actually in there. But it's very easy to do the audits. Like you're just looking, and with any questions I asked Francois and he was more than happy to help. So I just kind of put some comments for a few of the things. It was pretty straightforward for this one. And you just get kind of your marks under the yes category if these things are met, or if not. And I think they were all, but some of them are a bit subjective too. So like, is seating provided at regular intervals, but it doesn't have a number for what a regular interval is. So I found a few things were a little bit subjective. So it was a little bit trickier to know exactly what to put. So I kind of put some notes in on those ones. So, and then some of them, for example, 5.4.1 F, like the trail comes directly out onto Pleasant Street, but the path doesn't technically continue beyond Pleasant Street. But if you're visually impaired and there's no markings and you're just kind of continuing along, you might not realize that you're walking directly onto a street. Like there'll be the change in kind of surface area, but there's nothing other than that to kind of give you that heads up. So those were the and the other thing was that there are some rather steep drop-offs in certain parts of the trail where it's kind of raised up, and there's no barriers on some of those. So, and I did not go at nighttime, so I don't know. It looks like I don't know if all the lights are on at night, like because the ball field lights are really bright, and they may cover some of the trail, but I did not do this at night, so I wasn't sure about that. And about snow clearing, I don't think that the trails are kept clear, but I did not go while there was snow on the ground, so I don't know if that was done for the Broadbrook Trail. And there's two little, I don't know if you're familiar with the trail, there's two little kind of walking bridges, and one of them where people used to feed the ducks, I don't think they do anymore as much, with their nice little sign that's quite easy to read. The font's pretty good and the contrast is good. One of them has little railings on it. And the other one doesn't, but it would be very easy to, if you were using a mobility aid for your wheel to go over the edge to, it would be easy to kind of step or fall off kind of to the side. So that was the Broadbrook Trail. And each of these probably took me start to finish, maybe 45 minutes ish to walk. That was probably the longest one because I walked the whole trail to make sure I kind of saw it. But they really didn't take that long, and then to fill in the paperwork at the same time in the wind. Doesn't seem to matter what day you go, it's going to be windy. Yeah, so that was that one. Nellie, do you want to bring up the next one? Okay, so Beacon Playground and Park were done as two separate audits. So the playground area I counted as kind of the play structures and kind of immediately surrounding those, and the parking area is kind of next to those as well. And then for the park one, which we'll do after, that was kind of the remainder of the park. So where the gazebo is up to Brunswick and then down kind of below the park. So for the playground, the audit form is a little bit different, and you just, scroll there, Natalie, thank you. There's a lot about everything being connected, and I felt like at Beacon Park and also at Sealand Landers Park, there's kind of a token accessible spot. So like there's one little clear good pathway to one thing. So at Beacon, there's the wheelchair accessible swing, and there's the kind of one path that goes directly to that. But if you wanted to go around to the other side of the playground equipment or anywhere else, it's all grassed. So that's potentially slippery, muddy right now. It's not a area with paths that are easy to travel on. And somebody actually who I ran into at the Beacon Playground when I was there commented on how the signage is kind of, she found it kind of off-putting. Like it seems like here's this one accessible area that is separate from everything else, that it has a big sign on that says wheelchair use only, and it just seems kind of not as part of the park. Like it seems like a separate thing for other people. So it didn't feel like the kind of boundless playground idea that Gil has talked about before. So I just wrote in the comments on these some little details about kind of what is on the ground. So there's pea gravel under the playground structures, but there, and actually I'm not sure if I made a note about this, but to get up to the playground area, there's kind of like railway ties, so you have to be able to get up kind of onto that main area where the play structures are. There's lots of room, and there's lots of trees and shrubs planted. And there are lots of benches for seating, but there's not, a path, like I said, from the parking specifically, I'm thinking, to the playground structured area. Yes, and another thing was when I first wrote this, I didn't know if it was snow cleared for the parking or any other parts of the playground in the winter, but then I walked by when it was snowy and it wasn't cleared. So that must not be on the town's list of snow clearing places. Does anybody have any questions so far? All right, if you want to bring the next one up, Natalie, and feel free to interrupt me anytime. Okay, so Beacon Park, if you're familiar with it, I just kind of put in the description which area that encompasses, and mostly it is a large grassed area. At the Brunswick Street end, there is a paved path to the gazebo. So there's kind of one accessible area, but if you want to get from the gazebo to the play structures or to any other part of the park, you would have to go across the top of Beacon Street, down the sidewalk on the opposite side of Beacon, and then cross, there's no crosswalk, to go back over, or else you'd have to go down on the street if you weren't able to wheel a device on the grass to another part of the playground. So again, it's just that connectivity and not having all the parts accessible for everybody. You can scroll down a little bit, Natalie. And that they're not connected by an accessible route was kind of that main first point there. And of course, everything is such a muddy mess. Now, anyway, that kind of highlights the problems with grass, because when it's nice and flat and dry in the summer, it might not be too bad if you're using a device, but when it is wet, it is not the best. And there's quite a few benches around, and there is, there's lots of seating kind of in areas around the playground, and there's, it's not on here, but there's garbage cans. The one thing, there was some people at the park when I went, and they all said, it would be really nice if there was a washroom, because they want to take their kids for like the morning, and I mean kids. They always need washrooms and changes and so forth. And if they're planning to go for a walk and walk for, a long period of time to get to the park, to play at the park, have a picnic, it would really be nice, they both said, if there were washroom facilities available. And they said sometimes you can go over to Beacon if there's somebody there and it's open and they don't mind using the washroom, but it would be nice if there was something within the park. So again, that comes up as a theme. And yes, the snow was not cleared when I went back afterwards. So there were people at the park and playing, but if you were in a wheelchair, the path was entirely covered in snow and ice, so you wouldn't have been able to access that part of the playground. So I think I have one more, Tracy. Do you want me to just finish up mine and then you can do yours? Okay. So Natalie, my other one was the Sealed Landers Park one, if you can open that one. Thank you. So if you're familiar with Sealed Landers Park, it's a long, skinny, grassed area, and it's on a bit of a slope down toward the water. And like in Beacon Park, there's one paved path that goes to a picnic table that has kind of an outcropping, so you can put a wheelchair. You can wheel that in underneath, and it's under a gazebo area. And it's much like Beacon Park that the rest of the area is it's grassed, so there's not kind of a route that you could follow along if you were using a wheelchair, for example. So to access the other parts of the park, they're really not accessible, but it met a lot of the other criteria as far as having, if you want to just scroll down a little bit, Natalie, as far as having shrubs and like space. One other concern that I think I wrote on here somewhere that wasn't addressed in the actual questions, but that was a concern, is that it is a very narrow park. And so if you had, children there, for example, it would be very easy for them to just end up in the road because there's not really much of a barrier there. Yeah.
Can I ask where that park is?
That is down, I'm trying to think of the, kind of across from the New Life Church. Kind of you continue out Main Street towards Port Maitland Way. It's on your left past the Irving.
It's where the fountains are in the summer in Lake Milo. I don't know if you've seen those, but
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, just before the boathouse if you're headed out of town. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's it for mine. And Tracy did Frost Park.
I did, and I actually did this. I have to look at the date that I wrote, October, November. So, yeah, November. So it's been a while. So thanks for the refresh, Sherry, going through it. I thought, oh no, I'm not going to be able to remember what I actually wrote. But so this first, can you just go up a bit, Natalie, to see? Oh, the waste receptacles. So what I found for those was. Neither of the two receptacles that were in the park really were accessible by wheelchair. They're not close enough to, one is somewhat close to a path, but the other one is like smack in the middle, close to Main Street. So I felt that wasn't, it was something easily fixed that we could change. The rest of the receptacles were fine. It's just they didn't have any color contrast either. That was the last question there. I put they're all brown. They're just all the same. So there wasn't much of a difference between where they were sitting versus the color that they were. So that was that. The handrails, there's quite a few handrails throughout the park. Steps going down from Main Street and lots of stairs, of course, in the middle of the park, a few steps, and then lots of stairs going down to water. And they definitely need some work. I think where they fell short was that, again, the color contrast, there isn't any. They're all pretty much the same black. They were the correct height, but they didn't extend at all past the end of the actual rail for grabbing. So that was something. Some were a little bit too high, but they were right around the right height. But yeah, for the most part, it was the color contrast and the handrails. And if you just keep going down a little, oops, nope. The next one, that graspable cross section, kind of either like a circular. I didn't see any of that. And there was some that were not free from sharp and abrasive elements, and I think it was just wear. Really, the paint had worn off, or some of them were just a little bit in bad shape, and the surface for gripping really wasn't that great. So that was that particular piece. And stairs, again, quite a few stairs in the Frost Park. A lot of them are quite old, obviously, and I don't think that they've been repaired. Especially the ones in the center of the park, those 3 or 4, they were all a little bit different depths and heights. So some were, deeper than others, some were wider than others. The stairs from the Main Street seemed to be okay, and as well the ones going down to Water Street, but for the most part, they were a little bit inconsistent, and no closed risers and nosing again. Didn't see any of that. The gazebo as well had some stairs that were quite uneven. Yeah, it was pretty consistent throughout the park. There were a lot that were fine, but there was just as many that weren't. So it was kind of a wash there. The horizontal strips, I didn't see any stripes. I didn't see any of those. And the other ones were not applicable because there weren't any of those color strip contrast. I think that's it for that piece. As well, no tactile attention indicator to let someone know the surface, the stairs are coming, that there's a stair system in place. So therefore, the next few questions were non-applicable. And all of the stairs did have handrails. They just were, they were very inconsistent. So yeah, and that was that piece. So signage, there was signage, not a lot. It wasn't the international symbol for identifying anything accessible in the park itself. There was accessible entrance at the town hall for the washrooms, but nothing in the park. The next, yeah, I didn't see a whole lot of signs, really just, the ones up on Main Street when you enter into the park that way, the name of the park. But it could easily, we could remedy that by finding some consistent signs. And again, no tactile, anything like that, no braille, nothing that I saw anyway. Maybe someone else might have some more information, but I did go a couple of times and I just didn't see that in that area. I did find that I didn't feel that it met the whole journey or the universal, just for those particular reasons. And I didn't go when the weather, when it needed maintenance for weather at all. So I'm not sure. Let's see. So for trails, I think got scanned. There were, some trails or pathways throughout the park. They were fine. I felt they were okay. Some of them were a little bit bumpy, which I said most of the time they were good. The slopes were I felt they were okay, but I'm not 100% on how I calculated the slopes myself, but they were fine. They were wide enough for sure. The seating wasn't really at regular intervals throughout the ramp, and the 2 ramps sort of that I looked at were from the town hall down and from the side street. I'm forgetting the side street that you can enter from just off of Main Street. That one was a bit more rough than the one from the town. Seemed to be the way I would go if I was, needing to get into the park via wheelchair. There was some seating, especially when you hit down by the fountain. But again, not a lot throughout the ramps or the paths, and not really marked at all. So that was something that I looked at. I think that's, you can scroll up, Natalie. Keep going, I mean, sorry. So this part, like air, as you know, Frost Park is on a hill. So I know it is challenging to make that accessible. It is all grass as well, other than those stair areas and pathways and ramps. And there's lots of space for sure to, you know, sit around and for kids to play and have space away from others. The ground was definitely fine, firm, and you know, there's a lot of sensory in that park. It's beautiful, and you know, you can get away. Uh, let's see, and the seating, there is seating around. There were picnic tables, and I think that I think that's one of the ones. Maybe it's next, but again, it would be quite challenging, I think, to get through the park on a wheelchair, just because it's hilled. And here we go. Yeah. So the picnic tables I found were one of the biggest areas for improvement. None of them met the accessibility criteria, and they just didn't have any of those, all of the criteria for making sure a wheelchair can get under, and there's a certain amount of space. There really wasn't any way to get to those tables, no pathways or anything like that. They all were, you know, off to the side by themselves in a just a grassy area that wasn't really leveled. It would be nice if, you know, maybe we could make an area kind of leveled off, that at least a couple of them you could get to with a wheelchair, or there could be some type of pathway. And especially, you know, the picnic tables, to become accessible, is really not that challenging. They just need to be, you know, a little bit longer on the ends. So that was the issues that I had with picnic tables. And seating, again, I think that came up in one of the other ones, that there are quite a few seats and benches located around. They seem to be firm and easy to get into. They're pretty good as far as the surface, and I didn't see a whole lot of contrast with those as well. And I didn't, you know, really notice that you could distinguish them if you had visual, you know, impairment at all. They're also, most of the seating other than the picnic tables are just in that little area where the fountain is. So, but they were, you know, they were sturdy. I didn't really see too much, and they had armrests, so they met that criteria. But that was what I noticed there. And, you know, overall, as far as the, you know, the whole, the 3 questions at the end, I didn't do the seasonal, but because you wouldn't be able to really enjoy the entire park if you had mobility issues, I don't think, consistently. So I didn't really think it meant that. But I do think that it wouldn't take much to really improve Frost Park. You wouldn't want to have to, you know, really completely revamp the whole thing and it be extremely costly. But there's definitely some things with the handrails, the pathways, the picnic tables, and signage would be really, and even the waste receptacles. Those are really easy fixes that I think you could really improve the score on that location. That's it.
Sorry about that. Any questions for Tracy or Sherry with regards to those audits? We got time. Okay, no questions. New business. Anybody got any? Mike says great, both jobs. No new business? Additions?
Actually, Chair, if I can, I think it's, I know we had some complaints about the snow removal, going back a bit. And I know it was addressed and we talked about it. And it's never fun. Like I'm learning on this side, it's never really fun to get complaints about the work you're doing. But at the same time, that's why we're doing the work. And I would say that applies to all the committee. I think it's worth, in this case, I won't mention the name on here, but I think it might be worth inviting that individual in to talk to us about what he sees as some of the issues. I don't think he participated in the public input session, but I know that recently he was still commenting about how difficult it is to get around in a wheelchair in Yarmouth, and challenged anybody if they want to take his wheelchair for a day and try it. But I think he's got some valid points that it may be worth having a discussion with him. I don't know if having a discussion in this group or if we want to just reach out to him and, see what the concerns are. But he's a good guy and he's frustrated. And I know sometimes we think if, people go online and publish that's not the way to do it. But I don't think he knows at this point. I don't think he knows what to do. I've talked to him in person. He's frustrated. I know, my mother's in a wheelchair, so I get it. But I think it's very difficult for people in wheelchairs sometimes in the winter. And, we can change the weather, but, he might have suggestions of things that we can do. And I think it might be positive for us to invite him to talk to us or a group of us to see, if there are changes that we can make recommendations for.
Derek, I'll be more than happy to sit down and talk to him if you can give me some contact information to how to get in contact with him.
Yeah,
I'll sit down and talk with him and then maybe see if he'll sit down and talk with the group.
Okay. Oh, sorry, Gil's got a question. Yeah.
Not a question. It's more of a comment. I think it's great to see that if you reach out to him, I'll tell you over the years, I've had some contact with him on a number of occasions, and he's actually a very positive individual. So I think it would be really helpful to have him come in and speak to the trials and tribulations, some of the difficulties that he's experienced over the, he really has some good ideas. And I'll tell you, when I say he's positive, I left the Mariner Center one day after work. I think I was going home for lunch, and it was one of those days where everything was going wrong. And I guess I was having a little bit of a pity party for myself. And I'm driving down down Stars Road, and I look up and he's coming towards me on his chair, and he waved and a big smile. And I thought to myself, what a jerk I am for feeling sorry for myself for having a bad day. Like here's this guy that's, wheeling up the sidewalk and a big grin on his face and a big smile. So he's a very positive individual. I think he can contribute a lot. I was a little disappointed that he didn't offer to be on this committee, and to be honest, but I think it would be really nice to have him come in and as a guest and talk about what he's gone through.
Right.
And I can send some information, Mr. Chair, if you want, after to you, and if you want to chat with him first and see if he might be willing to chat with us as a group. I just think I agree with what Gil said. He's very positive, but very frustrated at this point. And I think what we're at this point doing is we're being reactive instead of proactive. But the group was created to be proactive, and I think that's exactly what we are. But we need to react to, I think, what he's saying are some of the frustrations. And I don't live it, so it's a little harder. But I'm around people that have mobility issues, and I do feel bad. He's a very active young person that would like to be involved in things, but finding it very difficult with some accessibility issues. So,
As I've already said, I'll be more than happy to sit down with anyone and talk about their accessibility issues with regards to this town, or just listen to their frustrations. I certainly know that I've had my own. Better yet, after I sit down and talk with them, I love to have them come and talk to this committee in the public input session, because that's what it's for. That's what we're here for. We're here to give people with accessibility issues a voice. And that's why I joined the group. That's what I've always been in favor of. And if somebody's got frustrations, I want to hear them. You have an ear. It may not work well, but you have an ear. And if you're not comfortable sitting down talking to a deaf person, then I'm going to put the committee on the spot and say you can sit down and talk with any member of the committee. That's what we're here for. If that's not what you're here for, well, maybe you're in the wrong committee. But that's what we're here for, to give Yarmouth a voice. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to say, you know, the reason I would say it'd be nice to hear from him in person is, you know, Peter's on the meeting tonight, and I've learned so much from talking to Peter and watching him. You know, we've encountered each other many times over the years, and also Derek's mom. You know, you learn more from talking to these people and observing what they're going through, and so that's why I think it'd be helpful to talk to them.
And one other thing, I wasn't planning on adding much there, but I do know there's an issue, and I know the hospital's a provincial mandate, but we're working on the accessibility issue here, and I do know there are some accessibility issues at the hospital for people with mobility. That I was aware of this week from personal experience with my mother, and they were able to accommodate in the end, but you know, she had a call saying basically they couldn't fit her in because they weren't able to work with people in wheelchairs in one of the areas of the hospital. So without getting to all the detail here, I think we need to put some pressure on the provincial government as well. Like, we're doing the work here, and you know, they're doing some great work as well. But I don't know if, you know, I'm not sure if the Premier or Minister of Health would be overly thrilled to know that somebody in a wheelchair can't get certain procedures done or treatments done at the hospital because they're in a wheelchair. It just seems so ironic to me. But anyway, we can discuss that at another point as well. I know it's not part of our mandate, so.
You bring up an interesting topic, Derek, because I've also had some, if you remember our interview sessions that we had, there were also some issues brought up with the schools systems. And I don't know, I've always been told that we deal with town issues, but I would love to be able to communicate what we've heard across the board with the various sectors that are involved, such as the school board, the hospital, whatnot, but it's also not really in our agenda of things to touch. But at the same time, I'd like to be a voice for those that have issues.
And I can tell you that Tri-County Regional School Board, or Regional Center for Education now, has an accessibility committee that has just started. So they're going through the same process as well.
Okay.
And they probably would welcome the input from this group on some of the things we've learned over the last year, because it's, you know, it's a difficult thing to go through and learn about it. But now that we've got some people here that have had some experience, I'm thinking they probably would welcome some input there. So,
well, I would be more than happy, and I'm sure Sherry, I'm going to put Sherry on the spot here too. I know Sherry's kind of booked up next month, but we'd be more than happy, I think, members of this committee to sit down and tell them what we've learned, what we've heard. The same for the hospital. Now, I'm going to go out and say I did write Minister of Health way back in December before the election on what we heard from Angeline and her struggle with getting an autism diagnosis for her daughter and some of the struggles that went on there. I never, be honest, I never did hear back. I sent the video. I sent a highlight of what she had said, and there was no comment back. So, and I do know from a person that uses the healthcare facilities quite a bit that there are some struggles in the hospital. Ironically, after we heard about Braille issues and the struggles there, the first thing I did is I went to the hospital looking to see if there was any Braille in the hospital. There isn't. The only Braille I found was actually on the buttons of the elevator. Even the bathroom doors didn't have the bathroom Braille signs that I don't know, some of you may have seen. So take that for what it's worth. Gail.
Well, one final comment. I'm sitting here looking at Tracy and Sherry and I'm on the board of directors with Juniper House and during our staff reports, one of the things that we get every so often is a story. One of our clients, and of course it's always anonymous, but it describes the circumstances of a particular client that we've dealt with. And I'm thinking that, maybe we should have a story time session where, and I'm not saying I'm leaning on Sherry and Tracy to say, if you could provide a story that you're aware of that would enlighten us a little bit, give us some food for thought. I'd love to hear those stories.
Comments? Okay, well, these are definitely issues that I think we can talk about in the future. I don't know what jurisdiction we have over them. Pretty much none, really, but we can certainly make the selected part or the parties that we've talked about, we can inform them as to what we've heard. Anybody else? Believe it or not, it's not even 7 o'clock and I've got nothing else. Sherry, I know you're going to be away for the next meeting. Sorry, Derek, I did see you. I'll get right back to you. You're going to be away for the next meeting, is that correct?
Not as it stands at the moment. So I will let everybody know if I'll be for a bit. So the date for the second Tuesday of April is the 12th at 6 o'clock.
I don't know if Tracy, you weren't here at the last meeting, but Sherry's going to do something very brave and very unselfish. I don't know if you follow her on Facebook, but it's public Facebook knowledge, so I'll say this. But she is going to go donate a kidney to your brother-in-law. Is that correct? Yep.
Yeah, so that's the hope. So just a couple tests left. Fingers crossed, everything will still be.
That's, to me, that's huge.
That's awesome, Sherry. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Derek, you had a question before I.
No, I was just going to comment on what you said about the meeting going by quick this time. That's a positive. I think that we're making progress, and we've had some long meetings, and I think it's good that we were able to get through this one quick. So good on the group.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue either. I'm a little tired tonight. By the looks of some of you, you agree. Okay, then if we have nothing else, 1, 2, 3, 4, nope. Then I hereby adjourn the meeting at 6:51 of the Town of Yarmouth Accessibility Committee. I thank you all for all your hard work and for taking the time to be here tonight. I look forward to meeting you next month, and maybe, just maybe, I'll talk this over with Natalie later. Maybe we can actually get together and see each other's faces someday, now that the restrictions are coming down. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night.
Thanks. Night.